Hey YouTube, this is EvanMagician34, taking my first video on my new camera, to which I owe my friend an awesome shout out. He pretty much just gave it to me. He's an amazingly nice guy. You should check out his channel if you haven't already. His name is Kaninga. Poof, magically an annotation with a link that leads to him up there. But anyway, this is my long-awaited Dark Paladin deck that won my You Choose the Deck video contest first. So yes, the deck does center on Mr. Dark Paladin himself, but we'll get to that later in the extra deck. I found myself kind of struggling on this one. I knew I wanted to use, well obviously I got to use Buster Blader, right, to make Dark Paladin, so there's one copy of Buster Blader. And running Dark Magician in here just didn't seem to work out as well, so you may or may not think this makes it a genuine Dark Paladin deck, but I'm using King of the Swamp as a fusion substitution. So to make Dark Paladin, you're going to be fusing Buster Blader with a King of the Swamp, and King of the Swamp can also, of course, pitch to go get Poly. But then I thought to myself, well, what could I do with all this King of the Swamps? I'm not just going to get Paladin, I got lots of other options to make this really cohesive. So I decided to fuse it with another TV show theme with some extra coolness. One copy of Elemental Hero Stratos leads our Elemental Hero section of the deck, who love to fuse, and they like to fuse old school style too. 3 copies of Alias, and you'll see what we can fuse for later, but you might be able to guess it from the fact that we're also running 2 copies of Elemental Hero Sparkman. Yeah, that's right, we're running 2 copies of Elemental Hero Sparkman. This guy fuses into some of the most amazing original Elemental Hero fusions that exist. They got some really good power-ups, plus he's just a light hero too, which is good for fusing. We're also running 3 copies of Thunder King Ryo. He's a nice light monster, he's a good beat stick, and he interferes with a lot of stuff that's out there right now in the current metagame. Check the date on the video, guys. We're also running 1 copy of Sangan. He can go get some really cool stuff, not the least of which is King of the Swamp. It's one of the reasons he made it. We are running Blacklister Soldier, Envoy of the Beginning. I guess he's kind of a Yugi-ish monster, but more importantly, there are enough lights and darks, as you'll see in this deck, to really justify his existence, and he's a great power finish. And this deck's all about power plays. We are running 2 copies of Spirit Reaper as some of our darks, not just for BLS, mind you, but sometimes this deck can get a little slow and behind. Some of the big plays commit a lot of cards. If you get stopped at a bad time, it could be disastrous. So the ability to set that guy down in defense mode and buy you a turn or 2 is actually pretty darn useful. Plus, he can be fused with King of the Swamp. More on that later. We're also running 2 copies of Effect Veiler. This is pretty much standard equipment right now. Very powerful, it keeps your opponent from interfering with you too much, and it's also a nice little 1-star tuner if all else fails. We're also running 1 copy of Honest. We have quite an abundance of light monsters, so this can help you keep them alive, basically, and score some big damage on your opponent tactically. We're running 2 copies of Polymerization. Just 2 copies of Poly, that's all we need. And that's partially because we have King of the Swamp, but also because we're running 2 copies of Fusion Recovery. For those of you who don't know what this card does, basically it gets a Polymerization and a monster that is used as a fusion material back from your grave to your hand, so it's a +1. It feels amazing though, because almost always what you're going to do is go Fusion Recovery, get Polymerization, get King of the Swamp. And so now you've got almost everything you need to make almost any fusion in your extra deck, so it's actually quite nice. It's a very good +1. We are running Miracle Fusion. It can only get elemental heroes, it can't get anything else, but this can easily get you something big out of the grave on the cheap. So we are running 1 copy of it. We are running 1 copy of Monster Reborn. It's pretty obvious. 1 copy of Heavy Storm. 1 copy of Reinforcement of the Army. But you could just as easily pretty much run 2 copies of E-Emergency Call. I'm just running 1 of each, just because. But it really doesn't matter which way you go. I'm running 1 copy of Emblem of the Dragon Destroyer. This can get Buster Blader from your deck or from your graveyard and add it to your hand. So it can be a nice way to cycle him around. If you haven't found him in your deck yet, get him this way. If he's in your grave, you can bring him back to make a quick poly for a Dark Paladin. I am running 2 copies of Pot of Duality, and the reason we're running this is because, you know, your deck is kind of combo-y, so you like to have your pieces. You can play this and then summon Thunder King afterwards to buy you a turn. Your opponent will pretty much usually kill your Thunder King for you. Play this carefully because of its restriction, but the searching is important, and the immediacy of getting things with it is also kind of important, rather than waiting 2 turns to Sark. We are running 1 copy of Pot of Avarice. This mostly cycles your fusions back into your deck. You can use it to put King of the Swamp back, but try to leave at least 1 on your yard for Fusion Recovery. We're also running 1 copy of Dark Hole, obviously. We're running 2 copies of Gemini Spark because of Alias, and we have ways to retrieve Alias too. So it's a good removal to that, but I mean, if all else fails, you can always discard it to something else. We're running 1 copy of Book of Moon. It's good removal and control because our trap lineup isn't going to give us a lot of removal. It's 3 copies of Royal Decree. Basically, this turns Dark Paladin into a very similar lock combo that you got with Horus the Black Flame Dragon level 8. Basically, they can't play spells, and this keeps them from playing traps, which really limits them. Throw in stuff like Effect Veiler, and you have a pretty effective lock, at least for the couple of turns you'll need to beat him down. So, 3 copies of Decree. Be sure to flip them before stuff like Warning would become a problem, because obviously Warning's counter trap, can't Decree in response. The extra deck is probably the most fun part of this deck. We're running 2 copies of Dark Paladin because we can make him easily. He's a really big beat stick. He likes dragons to pump himself too, so he's almost always the biggest monster on the field because dragons are fairly common because of the extra deck. And his ability to negate spells prevents upsets like Monster Reborn and Dark Hole, which is important. We're also running Sandwich. Reason we're running Sandwich is because you can go summon your Sangan, poly him with your King of the Swamp to search your deck for like Effect Veiler or another King of the Swamp or something like that. So this is an important target to have. We're also running Reaper on the Nightmare because we can use it to get rid of our Spirit Reaper and make something slightly bigger and slightly better. Good way to do those random discards out of your opponent's hand. Be careful with the Dark World stuff coming out though. We're running 1 copy of Elemental Hero the Shining. Play him judiciously, don't just make him because you can, you have other targets. 1 copy of Elemental Hero Absolute Zero, because remember, King of the Swamp is water attribute. We have Elemental Hero Great Tornado. This guy's easy to make with Stratos. Stratos plus the hero he searched equals Great Tornado. Good field cleaner. We have Elemental Hero Neos Knight in here actually because he's a great way to hit lots of stuff. He's fairly easy to make. He says Elemental Hero in his name. And King of the Swamp can do a good imitation of Elemental Hero Neos for this guy. And so King of the Swamp, Poly, and literally any other warrior, which is almost any other monster in the deck, almost, makes this guy. So he's a good inclusion. He can also be lots of fun with Honest. We're also running this guy. I like to call him Superman, but you can call him Elemental Hero Shining Flare Wingman. He gains attack points for all your heroes in the grave, and when he kills somebody, he deals them damage equal to the attack of whatever he killed, too. So basically, this guy kind of like attacks directly and kills a monster all at once. And this is Sparkman plus King of the Swamp, basically. If the timing is right with this guy when you play him, he can easily end the game single-handedly, dealing like 4,000 something damage. We're also running Elemental Hero Plasma Vice. This is Sparkman plus King of the Swamp again. He just pops monsters. He's pretty nice. Plus he's 26 and he pierces. We also have Elemental Hero Dark Bright. Same old story. He can attack, pierce, go to defense mode, and anytime he's destroyed in any way, he pops one of your opponent's monsters. So, in the right situation, each of those guys can prove to be a very good choice. We have Vision Hero Trinity because the guy, when he's fusion summoned with any 3 heroes, is 5,000 attack and he attacks 3 times. They just can't be direct. I mean, he's just pretty gosh darn amazing. We also have Vision Hero Adoration. He's just any 2 heroes, period. Just a big beat stick, basically. And we do have 2 Synchro Monsters because of our Effect Veilers. One of them is Trishula, because that's 2 4-stars, which you got lots of, plus your Effect Veiler. So that's why we have Trishula. And any 4-star plus that 1-star tuner equals Catastor. So we do run Ally of Justice Catastor. And there you go. That is your Dark Paladin deck. And the next You Pick the Deck contest will be up very soon indeed. So you get to choose between 2 more cards, and hopefully that video will be coming out a little bit sooner after the contest begins than this one did. I had to wait a little while on this one because of my camera problems. But, not you, my camera. Anyway, so there's the deck, and until next time, rate, comment, subscribe, and check out my channel for more cool videos.